And I'm currently working for one of our, they're not in the room, sort of medium-sized, fairly good-sized independent company, which has been going about 15 years, which finds itself having fallen on hard times. It operates in consumer marketing, and it represents some really significant brands, but it's simply not doing as well as it has done in its first 10 years of life. And what I've been struck by is a total breakdown in trust. We were told we would have shares, we were told we would have options. Nothing's ever happened. So those promises that were made, or those indications that were given, have never been followed up on, and trust has gradually decayed. Now, the principal is not really aware of that. If they were to think really seriously about how damaging it is to make promises and not keep them, because they would never advise their clients to do that, they would realize how that can decay, how that can rankle, and how that destroys trust, and the impact that that might have on performance, and how that ultimately impacts on the performance of the company. And this principle is convinced that people who need a day at home to work are secretly watching television. This person is absolutely convinced that it is a conspiracy to cheat the company out of working time. And this is, this is not a member of the analog generation. This is, still a relatively young individual. And it is extraordinary still to find that attitude, and there to be confronted by trust that has broken down, and there to see the impact on performance that a previously well-performing company, highly profitable, highly respected, has gradually drifted into a downward spiral. You can measure trust. You can, as an organization, create three, which I'm sure you know, the three constructs for trust are benevolence, integrity, and competence. And those three you can research against. You can gather data amongst your customers, amongst your employees, against those three key points of benevolence, integrity, and competence. And those three, the higher the score in those three areas, the greater to quote the great Sir Robert Worcester, the greater conspiracy to trust. And if those factors play into your reputation, your customers will trust you, your employees will trust you, and you embark on a virtuous circle of performance. Will it be confirmed that I'm barking mad if I read a poem? Tim Baxter knows this poem. He and I have worked together. It's the Christopher Logue poem, and some of you may know it. It's very short, but again, I think it tells you what people will do if they trust you, and it goes like this. Come to the edge. We might fail. Come to the edge. It's too high. Come to the edge. And they came, and we pushed, and they flew. So if you are trusted and you trust people, you will fly.
We've got a window on the future through a whole lot of case studies that we've done from different sectors. So they include big name companies, big brands like Unilever and Gap and Vodafone, and also smaller companies. They're by no means all from the tech sector where you'd expect this sort of thing to be happening. And these companies are really sort of moving from an attitude of you must do work this way to an attitude of do it the way that works best. So they're providing people with the tools to go and carry out their work, and they're giving people autonomy and measuring results, not hours. There are wide-ranging business benefits. Probably most relevant to the audience today is that you get a much higher employer reputation by doing this kind of thing. And it is absolutely phenomenal because the companies that are standing out there are constantly being cited and quoted and featuring at conferences and so on. You get extended customer service, you get lower risk of business disruption, faster access to markets, and essentially more motivated self-driven people focused on solutions. Culture is absolutely critical to this. So you can redesign your workspace and you can put in all the technology, But actually, if you don't change the culture and you don't get managers to rethink their attitudes, then you're not going to get anywhere. We did a survey of managers looking at, we asked managers to describe their culture on a spectrum between a type A culture, which is sort of extreme command and control where employees can't be trusted at all, to a type B culture at the other end, which is high trust, freedom to act, collaborative, focused on improving effectiveness rather than cutting cost all the time. And we found that the type B cultures were much more likely to encourage new ways of working. The organizations that did this were much more likely to value creativity and allow employers to do the right thing. And 84% of the organizations that were classified as pro new ways of working reward outcomes rather than time and attendance. Another thing from the survey was that 95% of the managers that we surveyed, perhaps not surprisingly, agreed that good leadership is about empowering people. And so we conclude from that the adoption of future working practices is a really good, a strong indicator of good leadership and progressive organizational cultures. A wonderful example, Unilever was doing some work in terms of transforming the way that they work in their big new office in Hamburg. And they were looking at, how their managers, talking with their managers, their senior managers and their middle managers about their fears about letting go of the default mechanism of wanting to control people. And they brought in a blind climber to talk to managers because he was effectively on the edge all the time. And it really sort of helped them to discuss their own fears about letting go. So it's really important that that companies address the issue of what's in it for me at the leadership level and at the management level. They have pretty much the longest hours of any OECD country in South Korea. Incredibly long working hours and a real culture of presence and face time and not leaving before the boss and so on. They also have amongst the lowest productivity rate of any OECD country. And they've got fantastic infrastructure. They've got broadband, one of the fastest rates in the world, and yet they've got this real problem of people being stuck at work, and also a lot of women not being able to work, just contribute to the economy at all, because they can't manage those two things. So they're really driving hard on smarter working.
Yeah, there's still quite a lot of companies, or especially leaders in companies, who think that work-life balance means 12 hours for the company, 12 hours for the individual. That's nicely balanced. There are organizations who are able to kind of leapfrog this trust and say, it may look as if on the surface our employees are surfing the net randomly, but actually what they're doing is connecting with customers and understanding, what's going on outside and really, trying their best to translate that back into the business. And of course, there may be a bit of, personal stuff going on, but that's all, I think, part of the trust equation that those organizations have. When you do this, you do create a lot of energy and passion and commitment from your employees. And there's lots of companies who really try to do this really well, but then fail to create an organization which is able to channel and use that engagement and commitment. So you get your organizations full of energetic and passionate employees, but also full of blockers and obstacles and internal, politics and all this sort of thing. So actually, I would say the energy part of it is important, but so is creating the organization that is able to draw on the energy and construct an organization that can turn the energy into results.
It's funny, I was talking yesterday, interviewing Martha Lane Fox over the telephone for a piece that I'm going to do. And she sits as a non-exec on the board of Marks and Spencer's. And she was saying that one of the things that's really taken her by surprise with that is the AGM and the number of people that turn up to that and how they feel, that it's theirs, and woe betide you if you do anything that, and that has a positive and a negative side as well, doesn't it? Because it can, when you have people who are so emotionally engaged with a company as some of these are, then you have to be very careful how you guide it around and where you go.
One of the companies I trust totally, more than I trust my bank, and probably rather more than I trust my doctor, is the John Lewis Partnership. I mean, they just speak to me in the right way. They treat me with respect. I adore. Did anyone see Tyler Brûlé a few weeks ago in the in the Saturday FT, and his mum was staying, and Tyler Brûlé discovered Waitrose. It was a stunning bit of journalism. And instead of talking about the knickers he buys in Switzerland, he talked about the fact that his mother had been out to buy some bread for the Saturday breakfast and had come back with poilin, and it was slightly undercooked. So he'd gone stomping back into Waitrose, where, of course, the bread was replaced and his money was refund and replaced. And bless him, the rest of his quarter page was this paean of praise to Waitrose and that sort of, you know, the way they treat their customers, which I think runs through everything that the John Lewis Partnership do. They don't patronize me. They speak to me as a sort of an equal, but I'm slightly on top, I feel. And I think that's a great relationship.